According to scholars, Martin Luther changed the course of biblical Christianity. Now, to musicians, this has curious implications. For example, the use of the trumpet in prophetic language was more exactly defined as a trombone, or its predecessor, the sackbut. Actually, the term trombone does precede the term sackbut, but the sackbut, by its construction, preceded the present-day trombone. You follow that? So most consider the chronology to be sackbut, trombone. All right. Interestingly, with respect to Luther and his impact, Christian fundamentalists sought to realize that the famous 1 Corinthians 15 scripture reference to the rapture should read, "We shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trombone. For the trombone shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible." Keyboards, on the other hand, are a different story, because most of them succeeded Luther's lifetime. The harpsichord was around at the time of his death. The pianoforte, which led to the present-day piano, came after that. And the celesta, which one might say is the precursor to the little Moog synthesizer, was introduced by Tchaikovsky in his famous ballet, The Nutcracker, which is being performed this week all over the country, including my hometown. Now, many of you may or may not know that the harpsichord was made of wood and strings, much like the stringed instruments of its day, but the strings were plucked by quills. Every time a key was struck, a quill would pluck a string. So the harpsichord doesn't have huge projecting power, although it is still being used today. And there are still antique harpsichords in museums and in use, and harpsichords being built by master builders. Pianos go without saying. They're still being built by Steinway, by Yamaha, and other master builders. The celesta, however, is, last I checked, not being built. The one in my town is a property that used to be owned by Erie's Warner Theater. There are 3 active Warner Theaters, original Warner Theaters in the United States. One of them is in Erie, Pennsylvania. And the original brocade fabric that is found in that theater is also found on the celesta. Celesta. I'm pronouncing it wrong. I'm Italian by background, and I always pronounce the C wrong. It's a celesta. That instrument was always property of the Warner Theater, and you can tell by looking at it because it's made of the same material. Now, for the past 25 to 30 years, I can't remember what year was my first year, I've played for the Nutcrackers performances produced by the Lake Erie Ballet. And my role has always been to double, which is defined in the halls of the American Federation of Musicians local as one musician playing more than one instrument for a given service or gig. So I'm a cellist. I play in the cello section for the Nutcracker, and I also get up periodically and go to my seat at the Celeste, or always did, to play the Celeste parts for the Nutcracker, which include the famous Sugar Plum Fairy dance, its presto, tag, and various other introductory solos for snow and other scenes. Now, a couple years ago, due to a political decision, a merger of two entities, I did not perform because the orchestra being used was run by an organization in which I am not a member. But as of last year, my role was returned because the organization, the ballet itself, chose to work with those of us who offered our services as orchestra for their pit. And so most of those of us who had always played, historically, at least for the past 15 to 20, were returned to that orchestra. So I'm back at the pit playing the cello 3 and all the keyboard parts. But, interestingly enough, the Celeste as an instrument was not released for our use. In its place, a keyboard synthesizer is being used. Now, muscle memory being what it is, the Celeste keys, the width of the keys, are about 2/3 the size or less of a piano key. And a synthesizer's keys, depending on which synthesizer is being used, Casio is portable, those keys are a little bit closer to the size of a piano key, but neither instrument's keys are the width of a piano key. So in order to practice a rapidly executed part on a series of horizontally placed keys, the finger's judgment of the width of each key is dependent upon the instrument being played. So I've been practicing all of my keyboard parts on my piano, and the synthesizer keys, in addition to being narrower than the piano, are also much more responsive. They have no weight. Keyboard weight is significant to a pianist. Some synthesizers respond like organ keys do, instantaneously producing sound. In the synthesizer's case, electronically, so the response is instant. Just by bumping a key, you'll get a sound out of it, which is then transmitted into the entire house via the sound system, the reinforcement system. So you're getting the picture here. The situation for performance demand is quite different from historical experience, muscle memory being what it is. And for many, many years, my hands had become accustomed to the weight of the Celeste keys because the Celeste has bells in it. So those keys are very soggy, and their response time is slower than a piano. The synthesizer's response time is faster than a piano, which theoretically makes it easier to execute the passage at speed, but more treacherous because of the size of the keys and the instantaneous response. It would be the equivalent of a trombonist being handed a sackbut and told to find all the positions in the same place, even though the sackbut was much shorter than a trombone. Or a violinist being handed a toy violin that is half the size of the violin that is being played professionally, and asked to play in tune, adjusting the intervals of the fingers accordingly. I think you're getting the picture here. I wish that I could be using the celeste, the instrument of record, the instrument that had been used for that ballet for many years, but thanks to our intrepid conductor, who has offered his keyboard synthesizer and laptop to program it, we at least have an instrument that can be used to make this ballet happen. So these are the inside details of the gritty reality of the professional musicians called upon to produce the seasonal offering enjoyed by so many in audience for the holidays. I'm hoping that when the time comes for the rapture to actually occur, we have an actual trombone available that can be played. Maybe in heaven they've got all the good trombones. Maybe by then all the good trombonists will be returning in the air to play them. We don't know the day or the hour when the Son of Man cometh. We can't even know for sure the day the baby was born, though we celebrate his birth in a few days in this country. The trombone shall sound, and tonight the synthesizer will as well. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Thank you for listening to the music.